Could I ask about the A15 extension? I might actually use that choice of words. Would you mind? I can use that. I
not going to work, is it?
Let's go forward to these sections. By the time we get to Rwanda's like it's the one who's so do you want to
No, I was just checking. Oh, yes. Yeah, we were doing that. That's the names on this one. That's fine.
This is exactly what he was talking about. It was coming back here. Oh, that's nice. You're right.
We just did a selfie with me. Oh, you look lovely. Where's your smile?
So much difference. It's a struggle, but I think
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. It's an extraordinary and a moving experience for me to be here in Rwanda today, a country that experienced some of the worst horrors of the 20th century in recent memory, and now finds itself with a thriving social and economic life and near universal primary education. Today, Rwanda is hosting leaders representing 2/3 of the world's population, stretching from the remotest islands of the Pacific to the southern tip of Africa. Rwanda was never a British colony. It joined the Commonwealth of its own volition in 2009, recognizing the benefits that come from being part of a progressive alliance representing, as I say, 2/3 of the world's population and some of its fastest growing economies. As many British Prime Ministers before me, and of course both Her Majesty the Queen and the Prince of Wales, have recognised, there are few forums more quietly important for our nation's peace, prosperity and global influence. We benefit from the incredible Commonwealth advantage, the fertiliser I talked about yesterday, of shared language and institutions, which opens doors and cuts the cost of doing business. We want to seize those opportunities, and that's why I announced this week major new British investments in green infrastructure projects, as well as trade schemes designed to break down the barriers to doing business. This is where the UK is positioning ourselves post-Brexit, in close alliance with our European neighbours, but also deepening our ties with old friends in Asia, Africa, the Caribbean and the Pacific. More trade, more commerce brings prosperity and stability to other countries, but it also cuts costs for British consumers and opens opportunities for UK business, so jobs and growth at home as well. Unfortunately, that global prosperity and stability is being threatened by Vladimir Putin's unprovoked assault on Ukraine. Many of the countries represented here in Kigali today find themselves bearing the brunt of Putin's folly. Their populations brought closer to poverty by spiralling food and energy costs. I know, of course, and deeply understand that families, businesses in the UK have been hit hard as well by the rising costs of living. And that's why in our country, our Chancellor has introduced an unprecedented package of financial support for the most vulnerable households. But we should also recognise the challenges around the world. The UN estimates that an additional 48 million people will be pushed into acute hunger this year. That is to the point of starvation caused by climate change and post-pandemic supply shortages, but also by the war in Ukraine. I spoke to President Zelensky last week in Kiev about how we can unblock Russia's blockade of Ukraine grain exports. But today we're announcing a new £372 million package of UK aid, and that funding will support the UN's emergency response in the hardest hit countries, as well as providing cutting-edge science partnerships to look at drought-resistant crops and new agricultural techniques. And as I go tomorrow night to the G7 in Germany, we will also be looking at what more the richer countries can do to bring down global commodity prices and increase food supplies to get the world economy back on track and stick up at the same time for the freedoms in which we all believe. Thank you very much. I'm going to go, I've got quite a few questions here from Alex. Let's go first to Alex Forsyth of the BBC.
Thank you, Prime Minister. You've been talking about the work that you are doing on the global stage, but isn't it the reality that some voters don't like the work that you're doing at home? You've lost what was a solid Conservative seat, you've lost a seat you won less than 3 years ago, and you've lost your party chairman. Have you considered, Prime Minister, that perhaps you are part of the problem?
I think that, of course, people are going to want to look at, political impacts and the impacts on party politics of these by-elections. But I just remind you of the context in which we're operating. The world, as I've just said, the UK, other parts of the world are facing the price shocks caused by not just supply chain problems we've seen post-COVID, but also by the war in Ukraine. We're dealing with those with a huge amount of fiscal firepower, so £1,200 for the 8 million most vulnerable households coming into people's bank accounts next month, tax cuts for the vast majority of people paying national insurance contributions, and also, of course, focusing on the ways we can, as I said, bear down on people's costs more generally. So, look, I'm not going to pretend these are brilliant results. We've got to listen, we've got to learn. But it wasn't that long ago, only just over a year ago, that we won a spectacular by-election victory. When people are finding it tough, they send messages to politicians, and politicians have got to respond, and that's what we're doing. I think the fundamentals in the UK economy are good, but we've got to recognise that times are tough for people right now. But I think we have the right programme, the right plan for a stronger economy to get our country through it and come out stronger the other side. Dan Hewitt of ITV.
Thank you, Prime Minister. You're defiant in defeat today, but your opponents say you're delusional, that you're now putting your own interests ahead of the party and the country. Your biggest asset was that you're a winner. Now that you've started losing, what is Boris Johnson's big asset? Look,
I think that what people want is a government that focuses 100% on their concerns and not on political consequences in Westminster. And I've absolutely no doubt that this is a government that has not only achieved remarkable things, done some very great things, is going to continue to do some great things for the people of this country. And we're going through a tough time right now. We have inflationary pressures that I've talked about. I understand people's feelings, but we're going to get through them. And I just remind you, we've got people in payrolled employment, 620,000 more than before the pandemic began. What we've got to do is make sure that we continue with the work that we're doing to help people in the short term with the pressures they're facing, but also deal with the issues in our supply chains, issues in our transport system, in our housing market, in our energy market. Reform those things so as to bear down on costs and make things easier for people and make our economy more productive. It's a massive agenda for change, and we're going to get on with it. Kate Ferguson of The Sun.
Thanks, Prime Minister. 2 quick questions, if I may. It's been a tough day for you today. Was there any point you'd considered resigning? And the main question, if possible, obviously the unions are going on strike in the airports now. Do you think they're wrecking people's summer holidays? Are you considering bringing the military in to help staff airports now? And also, do you think Brits should staycate if they can't go away this summer because of the union strikes? Thanks.
Thanks very much, Kate. Look, with the airlines, like the railways, got very substantial sums of public money in support during the pandemic. I think it was 8 billion for the airlines, 16 billion for the railways from memory. I don't think there are justifications for these strikes, but what I want is for people to get round the table and sort it out. When you look at what's happening on the railways, as I've said repeatedly, I think there's an overwhelming case for change and reform and improvement. This is a government that is putting huge sums into our railways. Huge sums of taxpayers' money are going into the rails. 96 billion just into the integrated rail plan for railways in the north and the Midlands. I think taxpayers and fare payers have a right to demand improvements in the way those railways operate for that investment, and that's what we're going to get. Martin Brown of The Express.
Thank you, Prime Minister. You had a much anticipated meeting with Prince Charles today. Did you manage to speak to him about your Rwanda asylum policy, and could you just describe how your relationship is with the heir to the throne? Yeah, well, look, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to go into what happened with the conversation that took place. You know it did take place. I don't discuss conversations either with Her Majesty the Queen or with the heir to the throne. You wouldn't expect that, but it was a good old chinwag, and we certainly covered a lot of ground. And there's no doubt that when you look at what you can certainly take away from what the Prince had to say today in his opening address to the summit is that everyone can see the huge progress that Rwanda has made. Claire Ellicott of the Mail.
Thank you, Prime Minister. The Cabinet's been rather quiet today in tweeting their support for you. Are you confident that you still have their backing? And also, are you disappointed about the Baroness Scotland re-election? Thanks, Claire. So, look, I mean, first of all, the government, I'm here in Rwanda, getting on with the CHOGM summit, which is incredibly important for our country and for our world. I hope that in London, I know that in London, ministers of all descriptions, cabinet or otherwise, are getting on with the job of sorting out the cost of living pressures that people face and delivering on our agenda for change and reform and improvement. And that's what I would hope that they are doing. On the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, look, I think it's a good day for democracy. What is the Commonwealth? It is an amazing group of 54 countries that share values, and in particular the idea of democracy. And I work well with Baroness Scotland, have done for a very long time since I became Foreign Secretary, I think, and look forward to working well with her in the next couple of years. Now, this is a crucial time for the Commonwealth. I think people are looking more and more to this institution. More and more countries want to join it. They see the value of it. And so we'll be doing everything we can simultaneously to help strengthen the Commonwealth Secretariat and really deliver value for Commonwealth members. Camilla Turner, Telegraph.
Thank you, Prime Minister. You're now out of the country until next Thursday. Are you worried MPs from your own party are going to be plotting to get rid of you while you're away? And secondly, you've just lost what was a really safe Tory seat. How are you going to stop blue wall voters across the country voting Lib Dem in the next general election?
Thanks. So Camilla, I think the answer to the answer to the first question is no. But the answer on the second question is what you have in this government is a reforming government that is going to that has taken all sorts of very difficult and tough decisions. And if you look at what we did during COVID, it wasn't easy. But we got some big decisions right. We had the first vaccine first approved vaccine, I think, of any country in the world. We had the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe. We came out of COVID faster than anybody else. As I've told you, we now have very low unemployment by historic standards. We're getting some big things done. We were the first European country to see the vital importance of helping the Ukrainians. But what people are going to get from this government and they're going to get from me is absolutely an undivided energy and attention on fixing the issues in the UK economy that cause unnecessary cost, and not just for consumers, but for people who need childcare and for businesses as well. The UK is attracting huge sums of investment right now. Much more tech investment than any other country, much more in Europe, and much more venture capital investment even than China. There are some things that are going really well, but there are some parts of our system that need change and reform. And the energy market is one, the housing market is one, our transport system is another. All these have impacts on people's cost of living. And we can do things that will really help. And of course, the biggest single expenditure that people have, the households have, is taxation. That's the biggest chunk that they contribute. We want to get, and we are the party that believes in cutting taxes, we're the government that believes in cutting taxes, and we want to get into a situation where sensibly and responsibly we can turbocharge the attractions of the UK as a place to come and invest by having the best possible tax framework as well for businesses and for families. Darren McCaffrey, GB News.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Are you in denial then about the election results? I mean, in the sense that most voters, lots of Tory MPs, don't think this is simply about government policy, but it's about you, that you are a drag to some on the Conservative vote. Do you at least accept, in part, that narrative is true? And second of all, on Rwanda and the migrant scheme, we heard from the Rwandan government yesterday that they had received and spent the £120 million from the British government. Have they received the money? And second of all, if no migrants are sent here, can we claw that money back? Or is that £120 million essentially gone for good?
Thanks. So, look, first of all, on my attitude to by-elections, if governments crumpled because of by-election results in the whole of the post-war period, we wouldn't have had many post-war governments. And that, I'm afraid, of course, we need to listen to the messages that we're getting. We need to learn. But in the end, we've got to get on and deliver for the British people, and that is what we're doing. And on your point about the Rwanda immigration and economic partnership, economic development partnership, it has many facets. I'm confident that the migration aspect will work very well. I think that it's notable that so far no UK court has found it to be unlawful, and no international court has found it to be unlawful. So I'm confident that we will be able to go ahead and develop a solution that I think whose time has come. If you look at the problems that the world faces with illegal migration, you can see that other countries, it's not just us in the UK, where we're out in front, but other countries are trying this. And you see what Joe Biden's been doing in the US, an idea for people coming from Mexico to go to Spain. You see the Danes are doing something very similar. You've got to find a way of breaking the model of the people smugglers. People smugglers, people traffickers are doing a profoundly evil and dangerous thing, and you have to find a way of stopping that. So we're going to continue with the policy, and you talk about will we get a refund? I'm confident that it will produce value for money. The current cost of the asylum system in our country is about 1.5 billion, and I think 5 million every day at least on hotel bills. So this is a very, very expensive business already, and I think the Rwanda partnership offers a good way forward. Esther Weber, Politico.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I was wondering if we could get your reaction to the decision by the Supreme Court in America to overturn Roe v. Wade, and whether you think abortion rights should be protected by the state.
Sorry, yes, Esther, look, I'd be absolutely clear with everybody. This is not our court, it's another jurisdiction, but clearly it has massive impacts on people's thinking around the world. It's a very important decision. I've got to tell you, I think it's a big step backwards. I've always believed in a woman's right to choose, and I stick to that view, and that's why the UK has the laws that it does. And actually, if you look, we recently took steps to make sure that those laws were enforced throughout the whole of the UK. Henry Zeffman, The Times.
You were talking earlier, Prime Minister, about wanting to cut taxes. That's going to ring quite hollow, not only to the many Conservative MPs who want you gone, but also to lots of voters when the tax base is the highest it's been in decades. So, or tax burden, rather. So, can you be a bit more specific?
Yeah.
Are taxes going to start falling for voters next year?
Henry, let me tell you what's happening now. And first of all, I think most people, I've tried to spell out the fiscal context that we're operating in. We went through a really miserable and expensive pandemic. I've given you the figures for the amount of taxpayers' money we've had to put just into the railways or aviation. That doesn't grow on trees. 408 billion altogether we had to find to support families, businesses up and down the country. But at the same time, thanks to the sensible management of the economy that Rishi has been engaged on, we're able now, next month, you asked when, Henry, next month, you'll see tax cuts of an average of £330 off everybody who pays national insurance contributions. We're already cutting council tax by £150. We've cut fuel duty by a record amount. And, I say that not in any way, I know that won't slake your thirst for satiate your appetite for tax cuts, but it shows the direction we're trying to go in. But you've got to be sensible and you've got to be responsible at the same time. And we're in a position still where we have to make sure that we look after people through tough times, and that's why the £1,200 that we're giving the most vulnerable households is also very important. Let's go to Berna Namata from the East African.
Thank you, Prime Minister. My question regards to your outgoing role as chair of the Commonwealth. Do you take responsibility for abandoning the developing members of the Commonwealth during the pandemic with travel bans, reluctance to share vaccines, reducing the aid budget, and more recently, the UK not availing its unused SDR reserves? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, Berna, actually, I think when you look at what the UK did during the pandemic, it was pretty remarkable. And I know that we would always want to do more, but particularly when it came to vaccines that you mentioned, we supplied the people, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine that was supplied at cost, thanks to the deal that we did with AstraZeneca, thanks to the investments we made in that project. 1.4 billion doses were distributed around the world. It was the world's most popular vaccine, I think. And I mean, I had it. I don't know if anybody else has had AstraZeneca. It was something that was made possible thanks to the contribution of the UK, of UK ODA spending, and I think that's a great thing. James, but by the way, may I say, as an outgoing chair in office, you mentioned our job as chair in office of the Commonwealth. I just want to pay particular tribute to Rwanda for what they're doing. I think it has been a fantastic summit so far, and I wish them every possible success. I wish President Kagame every possible success. James Karahanga from the New Times.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Prime Minister. I listened to the responses you gave the UK Parliament a few days ago about the question of the genocide fugitives in your country. And I keep wondering, is justice delayed, not just denied? What's your take on that? Yeah. Is it even a Commonwealth value to delay justice for over 2 decades?
Thank you very much, James. And this is a case of I think it's the 4 genocidaires who are in London. And I answered a question in Parliament the other day. And look, I went to the genocide memorial yesterday, and nobody could go there without being absolutely harrowed by what happened here in Rwanda. I understand people's feelings. And so what I said to President Kagame yesterday is that I will do everything I can to try to expedite this. It is in that, so you understand, it's in the hands of the Metropolitan Police. I can't intervene directly, but I will certainly be raising it with them. And I understand why people in Rwanda feel as you do. I completely agree, and that's why I've said what I've said to you, to President Kagame. If we can do anything more to bring genocidaires to justice, then we will certainly do that. And what I've said I will do is raise it with the Metropolitan Police. And we're having, as you know, a new head of the Met very soon. Okay, I was going to knock it on the head there, but I can see. I'll take one more question from Beth, and then from you, sir.
Prime Minister, just to follow up on some of the other questions around the by-elections, if I may. You put the results down to midterm blues and problems.
No, I didn't say that. Yeah.
But Oliver Dowden put it down to far more to that today. He said supporters were, quote, distressed and disappointed by recent events, and he shared their feelings. He said we cannot carry on as business as usual, and someone should take responsibility. And then he said volunteers and staffers deserve better than this. I know you've dismissed suggestions you've resigned as crazy and you intend to carry on and you won the confidence vote. But I imagine some colleagues back in London might be pretty astonished watching this press conference, given that you've been asked repeatedly and you don't seem to acknowledge that you could be part of the problem. You and your conduct could be part of the problem with voters. Why won't you acknowledge that? I mean, you're safe. You've won the confidence vote.
Let me try to give you the best answer I can, which is that, first of all, on Oliver, I think he did a lot of good work, particularly as chairman, but also as Secretary of State for DCMS, on broadband rollout, on veterans affairs, and other things. I thank him for his service. But I'm genuinely don't think the way forward in British politics is to focus on issues of personalities, whether they are mine or others. The way forward is to make arguments to people about change and improvement that we are delivering. And that is what I want to do. I think the government has got some difficult stuff right. People are now going through a tough time. We understand that. I think that we have the best way forward. I think that we understand how to fix our economic issues, how to make sure that we have a stronger economy, and that is what we're going to achieve. I think some signs are promising, but I've got to be clear with people, as I was during the pandemic. I think it will take some time, and there will still be some some tough times ahead. No doubt, Beth, people will continue to beat me up and say this or that about, and to attack me. That's fine. That's quite right. That is the job of politicians. In the end, voters, journalists, they have no one else to make their complaints to. I have to take that, but I also have to get on with the job of delivering for the people of this country, and that's what I was elected to do. And I'm going to take one last question.
Prime Minister, my name is Ethan. I'm from Rwanda TV. Rwanda and the UK are working together on several development projects. As a matter of fact, the UK is the biggest donor in Rwanda. Are you satisfied with the results that you've seen so far in your few days here? And what memories do you take with you back home? And if you could as well tell us, Togo, Gabon, and Zimbabwe are requesting to rejoin the Commonwealth. Do you have the latest from the meetings you had? Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, look, I was longing to come to Rwanda. I was very sad that the summit kept being postponed. It has certainly lived up to my expectations. It's an incredible country and clearly the product of really vaulting imagination. To take somewhere that had really been in the very depths of despair after the genocides, and then to work and work and work to create a culture, an environment that is clean, focused on so many things, so many values that I think are admirable. So, whatever the difficulties that may exist between my country and Rwanda about this or that, and of course there are going to be issues that we're going to continue to raise, and quite properly. But my overwhelming impression is of a remarkable country, and I wish I'd been able to see some of the countryside, but I haven't. On your question about Gabon and Togo, we'll just have to wait and see. And Zimbabwe, that is a matter for the Commonwealth. And I've taken two more. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.